July 1943, Southwest Pacific. Captain Masao Kondo stands on the bridge of his destroyer, scanning the horizon with calm confidence. His ship is escorting a small resupply force moving between island bases Japan has controlled since the early months of the war. The sea is calm. Visibility is excellent. Enemy surface ships are nowhere nearby. According to every rule of Imperial Japanese naval doctrine, this operation should be routine. What Kondo does not know, what no Japanese naval officer yet fully understands, is that the balance of power in the Pacific has already shifted. Not because of a new battleship, not because of a decisive carrier battle, but because the Americans have quietly learned how to kill ships in a way the Imperial Navy has never trained to defend against. For decades, the Imperial Japanese Navy had been built around one central belief: wars at sea are decided by ships, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and increasingly aircraft carriers. Aircraft existed to support fleets, to scout, to harass, to weaken the enemy before decisive engagements. Japanese anti-aircraft doctrine reflected this worldview. High-altitude bombers were inaccurate. Torpedo planes were vulnerable during long, predictable attack runs. Low-level attacks were considered reckless, even suicidal. Japanese warships bristled with anti-aircraft guns. Their crews trained endlessly to throw up disciplined walls of fire, trusting maneuver, experience, and doctrine to protect them. And for a time, this belief was justified. At Pearl Harbor, in the Java Sea, during the early campaigns around Guadalcanal, American bombers missed more often than they hit. Torpedo attacks were costly. Surface engagements favored Japanese night-fighting skill and coordination. From the Japanese perspective, the enemy lacked finesse. But while Japanese officers refined doctrine, American officers were asking a different question. What if ships didn't need to be sunk the correct way? What if the problem wasn't accuracy, but approach? American pilots in the Southwest Pacific watched bomb after bomb fall harmlessly into the ocean behind maneuvering ships. They watched torpedoes miss or malfunction. They watched enemy convoys slip through despite Allied air superiority. And instead of accepting doctrine, they began experimenting, not in Washington, not in grand naval conferences, but in dusty airfields, improvised workshops, and frontline squadrons scattered across Australia and New Guinea. Japanese sailors begin reporting strange encounters, aircraft approaching far lower than expected, bombs skipping across the surface of the sea instead of falling vertically, gunfire coming from directions that make no sense. Ships that should have survived air attacks suddenly lose their bridges, fire control positions, and anti-aircraft crews in seconds. Survivors describe the same sensation again and again, the feeling of being dissected, not bombed. Japanese commanders initially dismiss these reports as exaggeration, fatigue, fear, poor visibility, yet the pattern repeats. Convoys disappear in daylight. Destroyers return riddled with holes, their decks swept clean. Transports sink faster than damage reports can explain. The Imperial Navy is not facing bad luck. It is facing a new American way of war, one that turns bombers into gunships, mechanics into weapons designers, and convoys into floating death traps. This transformation will soon culminate in a single engagement that permanently shatters Japan's ability to move men and supplies by sea. A battle so devastating that it forces the Imperial Japanese Navy to abandon daylight convoy operations across vast areas of the Pacific. A battle that proves innovation can be deadlier than tradition. The Battle of the Bismarck Sea. The first warning does not come from explosions. It comes from silence. At 06:18 hours, Japanese lookouts report the American bombers beginning their high-altitude run. B-17, flying fortresses at 7,000 feet. Predictable, manageable. The anti-aircraft crews relax slightly. This is a problem they understand. Every gun in the convoy elevates. Every officer looks up. No one is watching the horizon. At sea level, less than 30 feet above the water, the first B-25 Mitchells appear. They do not descend. They rise. They come in already at wave-top height, propellers throwing sheets of white spray across the surface of the Bismarck Sea. Their engines are at full power. No evasive maneuvers, no weaving. Just straight, fast, and impossibly low. Japanese sailors stare in disbelief. These are not bombers. The noses of the aircraft are wrong. 8 dark circles stare back at them like open mouths. At 1,200 yards, Major Edward Larner squeezes the trigger. The B-25 does not shudder. It roars. 8 50-caliber machine guns open fire simultaneously, sending a solid wall of armor-piercing incendiary rounds forward at nearly 3,000 feet per second. The tracers do not scatter. They form straight, unbroken lines of light. The destroyer Shirayuki is hit first. The bridge vanishes. Glass, steel, flesh and instruments are shredded in less than 2 seconds. The captain, helmsman, signal officer and fire control crew are killed instantly. The forward anti-aircraft mounts go silent as their crews are cut down where they stand. Japanese gunners never get a second chance. The rounds punch through gun shields, bulkheads, rangefinders and command stations as if they are paper. Fires erupt everywhere the tracers land. Ammunition cooks off. Fuel lines rupture. 8 seconds. That is all it takes. Larner releases his bombs. They skip. Once. Twice. Then they slam into the destroyer's hull just below the waterline. The delayed fuses detonate inside the ship. The explosion breaks Shirayuki's back. As Larner pulls up, the destroyer is already dying. Behind him, 11 more B-25s choose their targets. There is no coordination problem, no confusion, no hesitation. Each pilot knows exactly what to do. They aim for the bridges, they aim for the guns, they aim for the men. The transports are worse. Kaikusi Maru takes a full strafing run from bow to stern. The bridge crew is erased before the captain can issue a single order. With no one alive to steer, the ship continues straight ahead into the attack. Skip bombs tear open her hull. Inside the cargo holds, hundreds of soldiers packed shoulder to shoulder have no escape routes. Water floods in seconds. The ship begins to sink almost immediately. Screams carry across the sea. The Beaufighters arrive next. Their 20mm cannons fire explosive shells that detonate on contact. Entire sections of superstructure disappear in flashes of orange and black. Lifeboats are shredded before they can be lowered. Japanese destroyers try to maneuver. They cannot. Any ship that turns presents its side. Any ship that slows becomes a target. Any ship that maintains course is already dead. Arashio attempts to shield the transports. 3 B-25s converge on her simultaneously. 24 machine guns open fire. The bridge is annihilated. The rudder jams, the engines lose power. Out of control, Arashio slams into Nojima. Both ships burn. Admiral Kimura watches from his flagship. He issues orders. No one can carry them out. The entire Japanese defensive system is built around altitude and anticipation. It assumes attackers must line up, aim, and commit. The Americans do not. They simply fly straight in and kill everything in front of them. Within minutes, anti-aircraft fire collapses, not because the guns are destroyed, but because the men operating them are dead. By 0700 hours, the convoy no longer exists. It is no longer a formation, it is a graveyard. Burning ships mark their positions with pillars of smoke visible for miles. Fuel spreads across the water, igniting into sheets of fire. Debris floats everywhere. Helmets, rifles, crates, bodies. The Americans are not finished. B-25s make second passes. They strafe lifeboats. They strafe swimmers. Orders are explicit. No reinforcements must reach New Guinea. By 10:15 hours, the sky is empty again. The sea is not. Of 8 transports, all are sunk. Of 8 destroyers, 4 are destroyed, the rest crippled. Of 6,900 soldiers, fewer than 1/200 will ever reach La. The rest die without firing a single shot. The Imperial Japanese Navy has just lost an entire division in less than 4 hours, and it still does not fully understand how. When the last American aircraft disappears beyond the horizon, the silence feels unreal. Only fire remains. Japanese destroyers move cautiously through the wreckage, their crews stunned, struggling to comprehend what has just happened. The sea is littered with burning fuel, twisted metal, and bodies drifting between shattered lifeboats. Rescue efforts are chaotic and slow. There are too many dead, too few survivors, too much fire. Admiral Masatomi Kimura orders immediate withdrawal. There is nothing left to protect. The convoy he was sent to deliver no longer exists. The 51st Division has been annihilated before ever reaching the battlefield. The reports reach Rabaul within hours. They are met first with disbelief, then with silence. No Japanese doctrine accounts for this. No manual explains how 8 medium bombers destroyed a fully escorted convoy in daylight. No previous engagement offers a comparison. The Navy has prepared for torpedoes, for dive bombers, for high-altitude attacks, not for flying machine gun batteries attacking at mast height. When the detailed after-action reports arrive, the shock deepens. Destroyers report bridges wiped out in seconds. Anti-aircraft crews killed before they could fire. Command structures erased instantly. Survivors repeatedly describe the same thing. The guns never stopped. They came straight at us. It was like being cut apart. Japanese naval intelligence analyzes the damage patterns and reaches a disturbing conclusion. The ships were not sunk primarily by bombs. They were neutralized by gunfire. The 50 caliber machine guns mounted in the noses of the American B-25s had destroyed the crews before the bombs ever hit. The bombs simply finished ships that were already dead. This realization is devastating. It means the convoy was not defeated by chance or luck, but by a repeatable system. A system Japan cannot counter. Within days, Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto receives the full report. He reads it in silence. When he finishes, he issues new orders. No more large convoys in daylight. No more surface reinforcement runs within range of enemy aircraft. Priority shifts to submarines and night destroyer runs. It is an admission of defeat. The Bismarck Sea disaster changes the war in the Pacific overnight. From that moment forward, Japan loses freedom of movement. Every daylight voyage becomes a potential death sentence. Every transport captain knows that American aircraft may appear at any moment, flying so low that guns cannot depress fast enough to engage. Japanese shipping losses accelerate. By mid-1943, entire regions become inaccessible by surface transport. Garrisons in New Guinea, the Solomons, and later the Philippines begin to starve not because they are defeated in battle, but because supplies can no longer reach them. The Americans do not stop. They expand the concept. B-25 Strafers begin hunting shipping wherever it appears, along coastlines, in harbours, at anchorages, even at night with radar guidance. Ships that once felt safe hugging shorelines are destroyed in shallow water. Ports once considered secure become death traps. The psychological impact spreads faster than the physical destruction. Japanese sailors begin to fear aircraft more than submarines. Veterans report that the sound of low-flying engines induces panic. Crews abandon guns prematurely. Some captains beach their ships rather than face attack at sea. The myth of Japanese naval invincibility collapses. More importantly, Japanese logistics collapses with it. Without shipping, Japan cannot reinforce, resupply, or maneuver its forces. The war transforms into a slow strangulation. By late 1943, American intelligence notes a clear pattern. Enemy garrisons are isolated. Medical supplies are absent. Ammunition is rationed. Malnutrition spreads. The B-25 Strafer becomes one of the most feared weapons of the war, not because it sinks ships, but because it makes shipping impossible. The innovation spreads. Factory-built B-25J models roll off assembly lines with 8-gun noses already installed. Some variants carry even more forward-firing weapons. What began as a field modification in Australian workshops becomes standard American doctrine. Other nations take notice. Post-war analysts identify the Battle of the Bismarck Sea as a turning point, not because of the number of ships sunk, but because it proved something unprecedented. Air power, properly adapted, can erase naval logistics entirely. Japan never recovers. The 51st Division never fights as a unit. Leh is eventually abandoned. New Guinea becomes a graveyard of isolated Japanese forces. Years later, survivors try to explain what happened. Some speak of technology, others of tactics. Most speak of fear. One Japanese officer summarizes it simply. We were not defeated by bombs. We were defeated by innovation. The B-25 Strafer represents something larger than a weapon. It represents the moment when adaptation overtook tradition. The Imperial Japanese Navy entered the war with the finest surface doctrine in the world. It believed discipline, training, and courage could overcome any threat. On March 3, 1943, over the Bismarck Sea, that belief died. 8 machine guns in the nose of a medium bomber proved that war had changed, and that those who failed to change with it would be destroyed. The convoy burned, the doctrine collapsed, and from that day forward, the sea no longer belonged to Japan.